Tim here from Proclaim AV, and today we're gonna finish what we started. Let's check it out. So a lot of you have enjoyed the analog mixer video, and so we're going to do an additional video to kind of finish that up, as there were parts of the mixer that we didn't really cover. And so hopefully today you'll learn some additional information that'll help you as you work with your analog mixer. So let's get started. Okay, so we're over here, we're looking at the kind of output section of the mixer, and I think we already talked about aux sends, which are right here, and those are the volume controls for each of your aux mixes as they come across. So the aux 1 mix, this is the send volume control, and here we go, aux 2, 3, etc. And they each have a main volume control for that. And the nice thing is that you can solo those, which means you can send them off to your headphones and listen to them over your headphones. You notice when I press that, the solo light comes on, and that will send it off to my headphones so I can listen to whatever is in that aux mix. So if I want to listen, hey, what am I sending to my person on the monitors, then I can solo that, send it to my headphones, and take a listen to what's going into that aux mix and go, oh, wow, you know, that piano is way too loud in that aux mix. I need to turn that down or something. So that's a good way to check that. Then down here, as we're kind of going down, there are several things that you can assign into your headphones and your control room mix. And we'll show you the control room outputs in the back. The headphone outputs are just up here on the top. But you can assign the main mix. You can assign subgroup 3 and 4, 1 and 2, and the USB 2 track output can be assigned in there. So you can put them all in, or you can take some of them out and just listen to one. It's up to you however you want to do that. Okay. So that's kind of a nice option to have. And then, of course, this is your headphone volume control. You can turn it up and down as needed as you're listening to your headphones or your control room monitors. So let's bop around back here and look at the control room spot where we can patch into the control room monitors. So that's a really good point if you want to plug in, let's say, studio monitors. Now, whatever you send to headphones will also come out on the control room out. So keep that in mind. Now, as we go down here, there is a mode button right here for your monitoring or your soloing options. And so let's solo something here just to make a point. So we'll solo my mic that I'm talking in. Now you see here it's on main solo, but we can change the mode to pre-fader level set. And so pre-fader level set, notice when we do that, we're only getting one channel because this is a mic and it's a mono. So it only has one channel. And that's a good spot when you're trying to set your gain to move up into pre-fader level set. And then you can set your gain using that. If you go over to solo mode, you'll notice now that we're in stereo. And the thing that does is in the monitoring, solo mode shows the panning. So as we pan the channel, which I'm kind of doing off camera, you can see on the meters there, we can listen to where the channel is panned in the mix. So let's say you had a channel that was panned over a little harder to the right. The solo mode will show that on the stereo meters there. Whereas if you went over to the PFL mode, it's not going to show you things like panning. So that is the plus, is that it's pulling that signal off after the pan control and letting you see what does the panning look like on that signal. Okay, so that is the solo mode button or the PFL switch back and forth. So very cool. Next is the USB 2 track to main input button. And what that does is it routes the USB return audio, if you're playing something back on your USB connection, it routes it into the main mix, or it routes the 2-track input to your main mix. Now, there's no volume control for that. So to change the volume, you'll have to use the device that you've got plugged in to turn that volume up and down, or you'll have to use the main fader to turn the volume up and down, which of course will affect everything else in your mix. Now, here's something weird. Let me show you the RCA inputs on the top here. Now, you've got 2-track in and out, and they're ganged together with the USB. So I have before tinkered with this, and if I'm sending something out to USB, it's also coming out the 2-track out. And then if I play something back on the USB input, I can also plug something on the input of this and play both of them back at the same time. So Behringer has sort of ganged those together. It's a little odd, but that's how they have it set up. So it's good to be aware of that. If you had things plugged in via USB and on the 2-track input, and you accidentally played something on the 2-track input while you're playing something on USB, you're going to get both of them. So mess around and see how yours is set up, and so you don't get any weird surprises like I did with this mixer. Now next over here, we have stereo aux returns. Now let me tell you, stereo aux returns were the thing that twisted my head around when I was new to analog mixers, and I just couldn't get it. So the thing about stereo aux returns is that these are stereo inputs, and the volume when you turn them up goes straight to the main bus, okay? Well, what are they used for? Well, they're used for effects processors. So let's show you how to patch an effects processor into a stereo aux return, and then we'll tinker with it and see what we get. Okay, so we're looking at the back of the mixer, and we want to patch into aux send 1. Now remember, aux send is all the things that we have mixed on the aux 1 mix. And so we can patch into it. So all our aux stuff is coming out on the yellow cable. Now over here on our Lexicon effects processor, we want to take the output from the aux send, and we want to patch it into the mono input, since we only have one channel, the mono input on the Lexicon effects processor. Now that we've done that, we're going to patch back out the analog output of the effects processor, and we'll send that back over to the mixer. So let's patch the output. Stereo. So we can come out stereo because our aux return is stereo. So let's go back over there. Now over here you can see the aux returns. Okay, and we're going to patch back into aux return 1. So now that we've passed in our effects processor, it is taking the aux send from aux 1. So this whole mix, whatever we pick here in aux 1 row, is going to go off to the effects processor. So here I'm on mic number 4. Okay, I'm on channel 4. And so let me turn up aux for channel 4 right there. Okay, now I'm sending it to the effects processor, but not yet. I have to go over here to aux sends volume for number 1 and turn that up. Now that's going to send to the effects processor. But I still can't hear it because I need to turn up the aux stereo return so that it comes back into the main bus. So as I turn this guy on, then you can hear there's my effects processor coming in, okay? Now, if I go back over here to number 4 and I say, that's not enough reverb, I want more reverb, then I turn it up and I get more reverb. Now, I want less reverb, so I turn it down here. So that's gonna dictate on your effects processor how little for each mic and how much for each mic as you turn this aux up and down, because you're feeding the effects processor with your aux 1 mix out to the effects processor and then back into the mixer output. Now, this also has, and let me turn this down because it's going to make me crazy, and you don't want to hear me, I'm the DJ guy, the whole time. Okay, so here's what's going on. This mixer also has a weird aux to aux send 1. And this is odd. I don't know if this is just a Behringer thing or what. So I'm going to actually scoot the mixer back over so you're kind of looking down at that a little better. So to aux send 1, what is that for? Okay, here is the craziness that is this particular analog mixer. Okay, if I want to use this, I can actually send a stereo return mix to aux 1 so that people can hear, for example, reverb in their monitors. But how do I do that? Well, I can't use the aux 1 mix for my effects. What I have to do is use the aux 2 mix to mix the effects level. Okay, stay with me here. And then I send aux 2 off to the effects processor, and then I go over, then I patch the effects processor back into stereo aux return 1, and then I use this volume level monitor here to send that back to aux 1. Is your head turned around yet? Okay, it's pretty wild. You can totally do this, but it takes some patching, and if you're confused about it, go look at Behringer's manual. That'll really help you kind of walk through it. So it's kind of a workaround. It's interesting, but you can actually send effects to both aux 1 and 2 monitor mixes or aux mixes if you patch into their return, but you use a different bus. Let's say use 3 and 4 to mix effects, and then you return them into 1 and 2 for monitors. Pretty wild, huh? And by the way, when you're doing that, you can also send that effect to the main bus at the same time. Okay, does your head hurt yet? Yeah, that's kind of a weird one. I haven't seen that on a lot of other units. So now there are a couple of things here that are interesting on this mixer because it has built-in effects, okay? And so let's go over here to 4. We're going to add 4 here because this is a built-in effects. We're going to bring it up here, and then we're going to put it up here, okay? So that's an effects processor that's built in here. And you can actually see the level meter going a little bit on this concert hall effect, okay? Now, this is sent to main mix. You see this button? So we're hearing it, but we can also send it to the sub mix. And then we can pick which sub mixes it's on, 1, 2, 3, or 4 by press in pairs, just 1, 2, or 3, 4. That's the only options we have. By pressing this button up and down, we can send this effect off to submix, okay? So if I take it off again, it's back in the main mix, and you guys can hear it again. Now this is the onboard effects processor. So all of these things up here are parameters for what I want to do. So I can pick different rooms. If I pick digiverb and I press down on the knob there, it will change my effect, okay? Let's try something else. Gated 2. Okay, that's kind of weird. Wah, wah, wah. Okay. So there are all these onboard effects that you can try, okay? Some of them better than others. Let's try that one. Now you can change parameters in the effects by pressing the button, and you can change parameter 1 and change how it is, whatever it changes there, different parameters. Okay, and I'm not really going to spend too much time tinkering with these, but you know, you can pick different things, different parameters within the preset that's already in there. Okay, so have fun playing with that. It's not it's not the scope of this video to show you all the different possible combinations, but we're just going to show you how to route it in, which we have already done. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is this solo returns button, and you can see that here. And that lets you solo the stereo returns here, and you can turn them up and down if they're already up. Let's say this one's up, okay, or this one's up, and if I solo it, now I just hear the reverb. You notice that there's no direct voice in that. I'm just listening to the effect. Let's try the other one. Okay, now you can hear the reverb and my direct voice, or on the return solo, you can just hear what the reverb sounds like. And the final thing we have here is the control room, phone's control room only. And what that does is it sends your stereo aux. You can only do this on 4. You could send that off just to the control room and the headphones, but it wouldn't go to any of your other mixes. I can't really demonstrate this to you because I'm not plugged into the control room output or the headphones output for recording this. So you're just going to have to tinker with it and see how it works. Now we have one thing left to talk about, and that is inserts. And we kind of touched on it, but we're going to demonstrate it here. So here we're on channel 4, and at the top here you see there's an insert IO. So let's go over and show you how we're going to patch our insert cable into a compressor. Okay, so here's the back of our compressor, and I have an insert cable. So my insert cable is XLR to TRS. TRS side is going to go into the insert point, and the XLR will go to the input and output. Now, a properly wired cable will not be confused with XLR because you're going to get male and female to match up properly. However, if you buy the 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch, then you have to be more careful with it to make sure that you get the inputs and the outputs plugged into the right ports on the back of your compressor. Now that we've got that patched in, we're going to take the TRS end and go ahead and plug it into the insert. You could hear that. Do you hear where it kind of interrupted the signal a little bit there as we put it in? Because now we're sending this signal off to the compressor and it's coming back from the compressor into the channel. Now let's tinker with some compressor settings. Now we've got our compressor inserted, and you can probably tell that when I get really loud that the compressor is closing down my loud spots. And so, you know, it's nice to be able to insert things. Compression is something that often gets inserted here. This board does have onboard compressors, but for older boards that may not have that, it's a handy way you can add a compressor for channels where you might need one. And we'll do a separate video and talk about compression in the future. Okay, so we want to talk about inserts that are available for your main inputs outputs. So let's look at that. So we can actually insert something into the mains left and right, and that will insert, let's say, a compressor into our main mix if we had one which was stereo. So notice that that's available as well for an insert point. Also, you have a separate effects out right there. That is a handy option. And then there's a Footswitch plug down here. So what would you use a Footswitch plug for? Well, you can use that to turn the onboard effects unit on and off while you're using the mixer. So if you have a Footswitch, that is a handy option. You notice that there's a second pair of main outs over here. So if you need more than just the XLR, because this, of course, offers the XLR main outs, but if you need more than that, you can do additional outputs that would be a left-right main output. Now, you don't see this very often, but this board has direct outputs for channels 1 through 8. So that means you can take a direct feed. Now, what's this handy for? Well, if you wanted to multi-track and you needed to patch this into a multi-track recorder, you could do that using the direct outputs and put each channel into its own multi-track input if you had a multi-track capture device. This board also has subgroup outputs, and you'll notice that they are stereo subgroup outputs. 1, 5, 2, and 6, 3 and 7, 4 and 8. And so that really lets you, it gives you some flexibility. Not all boards have subgroup outputs. And finally, this board has the good old USB output, which is actually what I'm using to record this right now. It's hooked up to my old laptop, which I use for audio recording, and it is only a stereo output. So you only get the mains stereo output on the USB interface for this mixer. Well, I hope that was helpful to you. And as always, you can go back and watch the video again if you're not sure what's happening, or go back, as I suggested previously, and watch it with your mixer in front of you so you can try these things on your own mixer and see how they work for you. Your mixer might be slightly different, but a lot of these principles are very much the same. Anyway, thanks for watching.